Welcome to What Are You Reading? A podcast of the Public Library of Mount Vernon in Knox County. My name is Christy.
And I'm Katie.
And this month we decided to do audiobooks that are available on Hoopla. We wanted to do something a little different, and I couldn't remember if we'd done audiobooks in the past.
There have been, because I did Woman in the Library.
Right,
yeah, so
yes.
maybe one or two along the way.
Yeah, it'd be like something different for us, because we've been reading a lot of either ebooks or good old paper books. And I thought it'd be kind of nice to, we both picked up a hobby recently, so I was like, let's do audiobooks so that we can junk journal while we're listening to our audiobooks.
Yeah, and we actually availed ourselves of the Hoopla bonus borrows.
Yes.
So each month there are a pretty diverse selection of titles that don't count towards your, 10?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, your 10 per month limit. So you can listen to all of those.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So, and because we're pretty prolific readers, I blow through those 10, and it's awesome, but I do blow through those 10 borrows. So when you can use a bonus borrow, just pay attention to our website, check out your Hoopla app. It'll let you know when you get bonus borrows. And those not counting against your 10, it's just extra goodies for the month. Yep. So yeah, Katie and I went through the list of all the bonus borrows. They make it super clear and easy for you to find them. And we picked books that we thought were interesting.
Yeah.
What did you pick?
Okay, I'm going to double check because it has a long subtitle. So it is Make to Know: From Spaces of Uncertainty to Creative Discovery by Lauren M. Buchman. No, Buckman. My bad.
Correction.
my eyes are not as good as they used to be.
Yeah.
Which the reason I picked it was because we started junk journaling.
Yeah.
And this book is on the creative process.
Oh, that's
so awesome. Yeah, which basically it starts out with the design of the Apple Store.
Oh wow.
And how it wasn't just scrawling something on a piece of paper and then handing it to the builders and they built it. They went through a whole lot of detail and drafts. They even built mock-up Apple stores so that Steve Jobs could go and feel them in real time and space.
Oh my gosh.
There was an interesting story when they did one in Chicago that they were using Indiana stone, like on the outside of it, so that it fit in with Chicago. And they couldn't figure out how to finish the stone so that it would look its best. And finally, Steve Jobs was like, you know what, this is stupid. Because we're in California.
And that is very Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
he would tell you.
Yeah. He's like, we're looking at the stone in California, and we need to see how good it looks in Chicago, where it rains all the time and isn't super sunny. So then they started like throwing water on the stones just to see how that finish would look in like the cold and wet of Chicago. So we have this idea, most notably with Michelangelo, where it's like, I already know what's in the marble, I just need to chisel away what's not.
Yeah.
And a lot of us assume that that's how creativity works, that flash of genius. But in reality, most of us aren't that way. A lot of it is trial and error. The author calls it just showing up.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, for example, there was I don't know if she was an illustrator or a fine artist, but she goes to the same coffee shop every day and she just starts drawing the coffee cups. And she keeps drawing the coffee cups until she gets an idea. and then she goes into drawing. So she doesn't sit down and say, like, I'm going to draw a unicorn today, and then sits down and starts drawing it. She is doing it while she's figuring it out.
Yeah.
Which is one thing that I have been finding with the junk journaling, because it's very few of them, and a lot of times I have an idea in mind, but I don't have like the entire layout planned out in my head.
Absolutely.
It's just basic topic, and then I just start playing around with materials until I feel like it's done.
Yeah. I've noticed that's my creative process as well, and it's changed over time. I originally went to art school, so I focused as a fine arts painter, and I found that this is an exercise that one of my illustration professors taught us at OSU. He put up a completely blurred slide on the screen, and every day we would have to draw what we saw up there in charcoal, and every day he would focus it a little bit more. So we're adding, we're removing, and by the final day it's in crystal clear black and white, and it's a still life. But we had no idea until we got to that last few days of the project, and it was such like a breakdown of how our creativity typically worked that it just absolutely blew my mind. And I was so glad that was like an early freshman year class that I took, because it really changed the way that I looked at my own creativity and how it can be totally, everyone's different.
Yeah, and they cover all different kinds of creativity. Did focus a lot on writing and art. But yeah, like with the design of the Apple store, you wouldn't think of that as like a creative pursuit, but it
absolutely is. Yeah.
So, and one of the ones that I also liked was he talked about adaptation a lot. So, especially in writing, and in this case, filmmaking, because the movie adaptation.
Oh, right.
Which was an adaptation of a book that the director or the writer pitched this story, but when he started trying to figure out what it was going to be about and how it was going to film it, it wasn't working. It didn't translate from book to screen. So then he added the person who wrote the book as a character, and then added a secondary character and made it about writing the book.
Wow.
Rather than bringing the book to life.
Sure.
So, and it's like, even when you start with an adaptation, like right now I'm working on a book that is an adaptation of a Jane Austen novel. That's the starting point. You have to let things develop as they develop.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to have as good of a finished product, because you're too stifled in your
I feel like you can't, there are certain things you just can't force because the quality just won't be there. The intent, the heart that you see in art, especially in writing, you really need to have that passion there, I think, to have like a really great novel.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of writers say, when they get asked, like, where do you get your ideas and things, and it's like, well, the characters talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, this is the way that the characters wanted it to finish. There's stories about mystery novelists who don't know who the killer is till they get to the end.
Sure.
So that a lot of the book is focused on kind of getting comfortable with that uncertainty and knowing that you are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Which isn't that like life in a nutshell?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like stressful.
Yeah, it is very stressful.
The whole way. Until you're there and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah. But having to live with that uncertainty, like with writers, the blank page.
Yeah.
Having to deal with the blank page before you actually start something.
Yeah.
So,
and we actually have a coworker who just mentioned, because we were talking about our junk journaling, and she said that when she opens up a new notebook, she has to scribble on the first page to feel like she's ready to start writing.
Without having that perfectionism,
Yeah.
which I know I have had that when I start journals too, because it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to mess this up. It's so pretty. And it's like, it's going to be fine. What's going to be on there is what's going to be on there.
Yes, you've just got to start. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds really good.
Yeah, it was really interesting to listen to. And the in this case, the author read it.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and he was very good with it. And also another good thing about audiobooks is you can adjust the speed.
Oh, yes.
So I had mine going at like 1.3.
Okay.
So I was getting...
Yeah.
Because sometimes the readers are a little slow.
Yeah. I think I typically listen on like 1.5. That works for me. I can't go any faster, but now I've gotten so used to it, I can't go any slower either.
Yeah, same. Because sometimes it'll get reset.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are they talking so slow? And it's like, oh, because it's at one time.
Yeah, because as conversationally, we're kind of going at it here. So like, it is kind of hard to just listen to this really nice, slow pace. And like when we're crafting, or I love to listen to audiobooks all the time. But especially when you're doing a craft or you're working on something else, it is kind of nice to, just keep a nice even flow so that I don't like fall asleep on my journal or my coloring page, And with that's a nice transition into my book, because no one's falling asleep during my book.
Okay.
I picked a pretty spicy audiobook called Dirty Little Secret by Kendall Ryan.
Okay.
And I'll tell you guys right now, I'm the type of person that doesn't look ahead. So I had no idea that this book ends on a cliffhanger, and I'm salty about it. I came into work this morning and I was like, oh, Katie, I have stuff to say today in this podcast. So our story is about a librarian. She's just gotten the head librarian position. Her name is Emma.
Okay.
And she goes to this coffee shop every single day before work to get her latte. And every day she sees this gorgeous guy we find out his name is Gavin. And finally, one day she notices as he's passing her, he kind of like gives her a look, and he puts his business card into the tip jar, which jerk thing to do, number one, for the baristas. So it probably should have been a red flag, but this book is full of red flags. You'll hear more later. So she, on a whim, grabs the card. She shows up at his work, and she doesn't even know why she does it. She's just like, clearly he wanted me to come see him, so she goes to see him. Well, he happens to run a high-end escort service. And not that kind. But kind of, it's weird. Anyway, so basically he hires people to go be available for you for events. So if you have a +1, you're invited to some sort of charity event or something like that, you need a +1, you can contact his agency, and somebody that you seem to get along with will accompany you to the event.
Okay.
She, of course, shows up, and instantly the person working the front desk assumes she's there for an interview. So she ends up meeting Gavin, who runs the company, and his brother, and they interview her for the company. She kind of lets on that she's a librarian, and the facade starts to fall. Gavin's obviously interested in her, so he says, how about I hire you to be my +1?
Oh.
So she's getting a little bit of extra money. She gets to go to these gorgeous events with him, these charity functions, and of course, things develop into a relationship. I have some issues.
All right, let's hear about the issues.
Let's get ready and readjust here.
Brace yourselves.
Yeah, get ready. Yes. So we have one brother who is kind of a jerk. That's our main character.
Mm-hmm.
The other brother, Cooper, is sweet and kind and the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's where I get an issue. Our character, Emma, she is in love with Gavin, the jerk, but she keeps relying on the super nice brother to be her, like, emotional support. And although this is, I understand why this exists in the book, as kind of like a bleeding heart, I don't like that. You know, I didn't like that she was kind of using him because he's obviously got feelings for her too. And so there's this, like, odd love triangle type situation going on that's very, like, one-sided.
Okay.
And our cliffhanger kind of involves that. And I like, you guys, I came into work and I looked at Katie and I was like, I am not reading the second book. And this is, the author's wonderful. The book is written really well. Like, I went, you know, I had no trouble listening to this book. It was a little over 5 hours and it felt like no time went by. So that's not my complaint. My complaint is red flags everywhere with our main male lead. You know, and then this weird love triangle that's very one-sided, very similar to, I'm going to say the forbidden word, Twilight. Very similar to that, right? Like, you know, I had Team Jacob vibes, you know, where I was just sad for this character the whole time. Where I was like, oh, you're not the one, though. You know? And I know she's using you, and I'm so sorry. So, that's my complaint.
Yeah.
But it was good. I don't want to, like, you know, steer you away from it. But I do want to say cliffhanger and red flags.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, and one thing that we talk about from time to time are triggers.
Oh,
so that's where reading, like, the little blurb, or we use Storygraph to track our reading habits, and it has triggers in it. So there are certain things.
Definitely. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Because, yes, definitely check triggers. This is spicy, so it's not going to be for everybody. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Check out Goodreads. Check out Storygraph. Check the author's website. You know, there's star ratings available on Hoopla as well. So definitely don't pull a me. Don't just, like, pick something.
This looks good.
Yes. I was like, oh, gosh. Because, if I had known that we were a cliffhanger, I might have skipped this one. Am I glad I read it? Yes, absolutely. The narration was really well done. There's dual POV, so we do get a chapter from Emma, and then we get a chapter from Gavin, and we get chapters from Cooper as well. So there is a male and a female narrator in this book.
Okay.
The female narrator, fantastic. The male narrator, I think, was over it. So he was like, he was not my favorite.
Yeah.
But she was fantastic. So, and that's something too, like with audiobooks, we've both experienced books where, like, the narrator just wasn't it for us. And, like, sometimes they're just fantastic. Every once in a while, you'll get a book that you're just like, oh, I can't do this. So, you know, that's okay too. Yeah. But it was interesting.
a nice little experiment for both of us.
It was. Yeah, we did something different. And I do really love the audiobooks. So
yeah, I do too.
And the bonus borrows are awesome. Yeah. So thank you guys so much. We do want to tease that we're going to have a bonus podcast this month. So be on the lookout for that. We've received a grant. We're going to do some special programming. There's going to be a special event, and you're going to be seeing a lot of the titles that we are including in this grant. We're going to be talking about on this podcast.
Yeah, so at least a few of the ones this year is going to be both of us reading the same book.
Yes.
Which is always an interesting...
Yeah, I kind of like that, because we can really dissect something a little bit more deeply that way. So you're going to hear more. Be on the lookout for that. And thank you for being here. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Definitely come in and chat with us too. And if you have any questions about Hoopla and Libby, we're so happy to help you. You can email, chat with us, give us a call, stop in, whatever you'd like to do. So until next time, bye.
Bye.